Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to join today's symposium. And today my talk is around the complex biologics CMC. So first of all, I'd like to show a brief introduction of our ProBio CMC platform. So over the past 9-10 years, we have accumulated a number of CMC case study in terms of track record. As you can see, the different modality distribution across the monoclonal antibodies and bispecific, trispecific antibodies, recombinant proteins, and fusion proteins. So one of the highlights of our platform is relatively comprehensive experience with complex modalities, such as about 30% of our track record belongs to bio-trispecific antibodies, with around 20% belongs to different type of proteins. And over the years, we have successfully delivered over 55 IND clearances, with most advanced projects has obtained emergency use authorization during COVID period, and two marketed projects, medical devices with ProBio as antibody supplier, and over 200 cell line development projects for IND applications. Currently, there are two PCPA late phase CMC projects ongoing, with expected first commercialized product by the end of this year. Here, I'd like to show a library of different bispecific antibody formats that we have successfully delivered in the past. So in general, we can see we can categorize the bispecific antibody into the IgG-like, which contains the Fc fragment, and non-IgG-like, which contains only the Fab fragment. So over the past years, we have successfully worked with over 30 different bispecific antibody formats, including such as the IgG-like ones with symmetric bispecific antibodies, which IgG fused with single-chain FV, or IgG fused with single-domain antibody. And for asymmetric bispecific antibody, we have worked with different type of bispecifics with 2, 3, or 4 different chains. For example, as you can see, some of the formats, for example, this trispecific antibody contains 4 different chains with 2 different heavy chains and 2 different light chains. And the second example shows here is FC plus single chain FV with 2 different chains on the A chain and B chain. And similarly, there are a number of different formats as listed here with some examples. And in addition, we have worked with a type of unconventional molecules, such as those does not contain Fc fragments. For example, the single chain FV linked with a Fab fragment, different type of VHH connected in tandem. Some of them has already obtained IND from FDA as an NMPA. In general, the average titer of our platform achieves greater than 6 grams per liter, and average yield is about 50%. And this slide shows a library of different protein molecules. As I mentioned, we covered different type of fusion proteins, such as the Fab fusion proteins with antibody VHH fragment fused with protein, or Fab fused with protein. The more common types include different type of Fc fusion proteins. And in terms of recombinant proteins without any tags, we have done CMC projects with the spike proteins for vaccine applications, the hormone molecules, this one is currently in phase 3, and enzyme molecules with instability properties and blood factor 8. This project is currently also in clinical phase 3, and we expect commercialization soon in China this year. And last but not least, I'd like to mention that we have seen an emerging type of applications of antibody fragments, such as a Fab fragment as single-chain FV fragment and VHH fragment. And we are going to touch base on this in our second talk this afternoon. There are a number of challenges associated with these different type of challenging molecules. For example, for bispecific antibodies, the most common challenges we have seen include the formation of different byproducts, such as homodimers for asymmetric bispecifics, and a high amount of aggregates and its removal, fragments, how to improve its expression level, as well as the N-glycan optimization. For recombinant proteins, the common challenges include the low protein stability and how to design the capture step for those molecules without Fc fragment, removal of high level of HCPs, the low expression levels, as well as the analytical method development for special protein molecules. Over the years, since we have accumulated a lot of experience in dealing with these challenges, we have established our toolbox platform over the past years. So basically that covers a number of different units, from cell line development, cell culture development, purification, formulation, as well as analytics, and summarize our solutions, platform solutions into this toolbox platform so that we can tackle those challenges more specifically and more effectively. And over this year, we have also implemented AI function in our toolbox platform so that we create a ChatGPT version internally to effectively address common CMC challenges with case studies. So today, I'm going to focus on 4 common CMC challenges in those challenging molecules, including how to improve product expression, how to control the byproducts, control aggregates, as well as the N-glycan profile optimization. So let's start with the titer improvement. So basically, how to get a higher titer expression is one of the key goals for the cell line construction as well as cell culture process optimization. So starting with the cell line part, there are a number of key factors that contribute to different level of expression, such as the host cell, the vectors, as well as its selection system. So let's start with the vector selection. So basically, the expression vector is a critical factor influencing the transfection and transcription of our gene of interest. And it will also impact the stability, solubility, as well as the secretion level of our target protein. So in general, the key components of a vector include a promoter, a signal peptide, a different the titer enhancers, or most commonly known as the transposon system, common strategies like a lot of platform has utilized. So here, ProBio has developed over the years a number of different vector systems. So our second generation up vector, we implement a titer up enhancer element, transposon element, basically that helps to improve the integration efficiency and significantly improve the titer of complex molecules. And over the last year, most recently, we have launched our also proprietary third generation max vector. On top of the up vector, we also include a stability enhancer element in our max vector, where we also significantly enhance the stability of our vector, and allows also for faster recovery in the stable cell pool stage. This application also has filed for IP globally. So here, as you can see, the selection of different vectors could have a huge impact on the expression level of our protein and antibodies. Also, the high throughput selection system also plays a key role in getting high expression single clone. The traditional methods, such as limited dilution or FACS, suffers from their throughput. So sometimes it's not quite effectively to identify the truly high expression single clone. So over the years, there are a number of technologies to advance different type of instruments to allow for more high throughput screening for high expression clones, such as a number of systems I listed here, the VEPS, the Wolf system, utilizing some systems utilizing the microfluidic sorter, such as a beacon and single cell printer. So our system also utilizing some of this advanced instrument. Plus, over last year, our R&D team also developed a fluorescent-based high-throughput screening system. So basically, combined with cell screening utilizing microfluidic cell sorter, we utilize a fluorescent dye that could bind specifically to target protein of interest. And during the screening phase, the system would automatically pick the cells that could express high intensity of the fluorescence dye and more effectively pick up the high expression single clone. As shown in the graph in the middle, compared with more conventional methods such as using VIPE system, our high throughput fluorescence dye-based system could effectively improve the expression level of the selected single clone with a much shorter selection period of time. And moving on to the cell culture stage, there are a number of ways to improve the titer expression. With the common strategies listed here, we can do the media screening and feed and additive optimization, plus the process parameter optimization in the bioreactor stage. And oftentimes, if we are still not satisfied with the titer, we can utilize intense fed batch or the perfusion cell culture mode to further improve the titer. I wouldn't go through details in this because they are very commonly used strategies in upstream optimization. So I would like to highlight our in-house media capabilities. Our R&D team over the last 3 years has come up with our unique in-house media component that suits for our whole cell plus vector system. So basically we start from zero because we don't know the catalog media components that are commercially sold in the market. So starting from scratch, we developed our in-house media platform. And as you can see, we have tested and utilized in a number of CMC projects, over 26 projects. Our in-house media achieved over 70% of the projects achieved the highest expression titer among the major domestic as well as international brand media, such as the Thermo Fisher or Merck, Cytiva branding cell culture media. And the bispecific antibody and mAb titer expression in fed batch mode could be achieved as high as 10 gram per liter and 14 gram per liter. And moreover, I'd like to highlight that over this past few years' experience developing this in-house media platform that give us a very deep know-how with respect to how does different components in the cell culture media impact the cell culture performance, as well as how can we tweak the different components as well as their concentration to get a desired titer expression as well as a quality profile, such as how to adjust different acidic or basic charge variants or different glycosylation patterns. Moving on to the second topic, how to control the homodimer. So the generation of homodimer, such as misparent species, is one of the most challenging topic in asymmetric bispecific antibody. When tackling this problem, we can start with different aspects. So first of all, in terms of the molecular design, actually this is one of the key that could help alleviate this type of challenge. Here I list a typical bispecific antibody with 4 different chains, 2 different light chains and 2 different heavy chains. Because these chains are freely expressed in the CHO cell, and if you allow a free assembly of different components, it results in a library of different misparents of the species, and the correct assembled bispecific antibody only account for like around 10% of all these different type of molecules. So in general, most of the companies would adopt a type of different designs to prevent the misparents of heavy chains or light chains. So here I list a number of different commonly used strategies to prevent the misparents, such as knobbing to hole. I think nowadays the majority of the bispecific antibody adopt this type of format, as well as so the general strategy to prevent the misparent of heavy chains include introducing point mutations in their CH3 regions, either electrostatic repulsion or steric kind of hindrance to prevent the misparent of heavy chains. Some examples include the ART-IG, the dual body with controlled fiber-arm exchange, and asymmetric type of formats. So they all adopt similar strategies to prevent the misparent of heavy chains. And in terms of the misparent of light chains, commonly used strategies include the common light chains or cross map, basically switching the CH1 and VL domain, the light chain domain to prevent the misparent of the light chains. And moving on to the cell line stage, there are a couple of ways to help improve the correctly paired species. For example, our platform commonly adopted a dual vector system to improve both the productivity as well as the purity. Here are a couple of examples of asymmetric bispecific antibodies with different domains expressed in A part and B part. So one of the strategies is to put everything into one single vector. Alternatively, you can also design the molecules expressed in the separate vectors. For example, in this number of cases, we can basically express the component A and component B in two different vectors. And by tuning the different vector ratios and further optimize this aspect, we can achieve a higher expression titer as well as reduced homodimer species. Here is one of the example. So for example, this is a 2-chain asymmetric bispecific antibody. So initially, if we put the 2 chains expressed in a single vector, since the B vector is quite overexpressed, even though it's put in a second order. However, we still see the correct pairing of A plus B only accounts for around 20% of the expressed species, and a lot of impurities come from the overexpressed chain B. As a result, the overall titer is also low at less than 1 gram per liter. And with further optimization with the dual vector system and further optimize the vector ratio, as we can see, we can significantly improve the purity level to over 70% and improve the titer by tenfold. If still we cannot tackle all the challenge of this homodimer species, we move on to the purification stage. Sometimes it's not an overall optimal strategy because oftentimes in order to remove these homodimers, we need to sacrifice some of the downstream yield. Here we give an example of separating the homodimer from our target molecule. So to analyze the purification of different species, we start with analyzing the different chemical and physical properties of the 2 chains. For example, in this particular case, when we run an IC-IEF analysis of our target proteins, we can see the chain 1 and chain 2 have relatively big difference in terms of their isoelectric point. So delta pi is close to 1. So in general, we think if the 2 chains delta pi is greater than 0.5, there's a good chance of utilizing electrons charge variance or the CEX or AEX type of chromatography to separate them based on their electrostatic difference. So it is indeed the case. We utilize a mixed mode CEX resin to successfully remove almost all the homodimers in one-step chromatography. And overall yield is 60% because the other 40% loss belongs to the homodimer species. This is another successful example. Again, for this molecule, it designed a knob into hole structure with Fc fused with 2 single-chain FV species, asymmetric structure. And in our experience, even though knob into hole structure is utilized, sometimes we still see quite significant amount of homodimer expressed, especially with the whole type of mispairing. And as a result, we have seen about 20% of the aggregates because of the introduction of single-chain FV species, as well as around 30% of the whole homodimer that need to be removed. Plus, this molecule is not a stable one. Upon the CEX elution at high salt concentration, the molecule is quite unstable to form additional aggregates. So for this particular project, we utilize a different type of mixed mode chromatography to successfully remove both the high molecular weight as well as the whole homodimer. And for the instability of the molecule, we actually exchange the UFDF and nanofiltration step to perform the buffer exchange first to a stable condition and followed by nanofiltration. So in this case, the CHT resin, the ceramic hydroxyapatite, was used for high molecular weight aggregates removal. And in our experience, the CHT resin, even though it's sometimes conveniently used for certain cases, but it's quite effective in removing some aggregates, especially the ones associated with single-chain FV species. And the mixed mode CEX was used for whole homodimer removal. As shown in this graph, the second step of the CHT resin is very effective in removing all of the high molecular weight in a single step chromatography, and followed by a capital MMC step, which successfully remove all of the homodimer species with a decent overall recovery. Next, let's also talk about how to control the aggregates. I think if anyone has worked with bispecific, we will soon realize that the aggregates control and removal is one of the key challenge in a lot of bispecific antibody projects. So actually, there are a number of different type of aggregates and their underlying mechanism of formation. For example, the aggregates can be categorized into covalent versus non-covalent bond aggregates, or they can be reversible and irreversibly formed, and they can be soluble or insolubly formed. And there are a number of factors that contribute to different level of aggregates in a particular molecule, starting with the protein structure itself, its primary structure, how many hydrophobicity amino acids are included in their sequence, as well as their secondary, tertiary structures, as well as the post-translational modifications can all contribute to different level of aggregates. In terms of the cell culture pH, DO temperature, the osmolality, different type of media chosen, and redox condition can all impact the level of aggregates. Similarly, in the purification stage, different pH, conductivity, and buffer of choice, freeze and thaw process, as well as shear force, can all contribute to the formation of aggregates. In order to better control the aggregates level, I will also go through 3 different aspects, starting with the molecular design, as well as both the upstream and downstream optimization to minimize this challenge. So first, let's start with the design of the molecule. And a lot of times when we see bispecific antibodies or fusion proteins, sometimes the formation of the design of the molecule itself has a huge impact on the developability. For example, in this particular case, this is IgG antibody fused with C-terminal fused with 2 single-chain FV fragment. And with their wild-type design, we can see it's quickly forms a high level of aggregates when the molecule start to concentrate, which indicates a poor drug developability because we cannot concentrate about 1 milligram per milliliter before we start to see an increased level of aggregates, even without selective pressure. So luckily, this molecule is in the early pre-CMC stage, so we work with the client to help modify the design of the molecule. Specifically, we've seen single-chain FV is very commonly utilized a component to construct bispecific antibody format. So in general, there are different ways and designs to optimize the single-chain FV design. For example, we can introduce interdomain disulfide bond to help stabilize the structure stability and minimize the exposure of hydrophobic region of the single-chain FV. Alternatively, we can also alternate the design of the linker with different lengths to achieve a balance between the flexibility versus the conformational stress. As you can see, after modification, this molecule is much more stable upon concentration and is able to move next to the CMC stage. In terms of the cell culture, there are a couple of chances that we can successfully reduce the aggregates level. For example, in this case, we first start with analyzing the origin of the aggregate species. For this case, initially, when we first do the first round of cell culture, we see a significant level of aggregates present with over 90%. And upon further analysis, when we run the reduced versus non-reduced gels, as we can see, on the reduced condition, almost all the aggregates disappeared. That's a pretty good indication suggesting that the majority of the aggregates has to do with the covalent bonding. So as a general strategy, we should consider adding some reductants to break down the intermolecular disulfide bond to reduce the level of aggregates formation. So in this project, we did a DOE study of different levels, concentration of cysteine as a reductant and combined with different media and cell culture temperature, and successfully reduced the level of aggregates from over 90% down to 12%. And also the selection of cell culture mode could also influence the aggregates formed in the upstream process. One common strategy is to consider using perfusion cell culture to reduce the level of aggregates because first, in general, as suggested also in the literature, running perfusion mode could alleviate the overall oxidation of glutathione induced by oxidative stress, thereby reducing the disulfide bond formation and the dimer formation. And additionally, since its perfusion allows for shorter residence time of our molecule in the bioreactor, it oftentimes could reduce the level of non-covalent bonded aggregates as well. So here is one example of shifting different cell culture mode can reduce the non-covalent bond aggregates by over 10%. And currently there's one projects ongoing, which is quite challenging. We also switch from the intensified fed batch to the perfusion mode, where we reduce the level of aggregates by over 20 to 30%. Again, if we still have additional aggregates to be removed, we are moving further on down to the downstream purification stage. And our platform has established quite a number of effective strategies as a platform solution to tackle the aggregates removal. Here, I just want to give a couple of examples. One of this format is a Fab plus single-chain FV. This molecule does not quite have a good developability properties. And actually, we work with this client with a number of different formats, but similar to this. And none of them actually have a good level of purity in terms of the aggregates level. For this one, over 45% of aggregates were present after affinity capture step. So we utilize still 3-step chromatography. for this particular case with AEX and CEX optimization, successfully remove all of the impurities and achieve greater than 99% of the SEC purity toward the end of the process. So our last topic for today is on the N-glycan optimization. Over the recent years, we have seen a lot more and more cases and clients asking for the glycan profile optimization because over the years we have accumulated more understanding about how does glycan profile impact different properties of our target IgG molecules. For example, these are a number of commonly seen glycan profile that's with their potential impact on antibody are pretty well understood. For example, the high mannose species could have impact on the serum half-life, and oftentimes we have to control the mannose level down to at least within 10%, for a lot of cases within 5%. And afucosylation, we know that some of the cases we need 100% afucosylation to successfully enhance the ADCC effect. And glycosylation could have certain impact on the CDC as well as the ADCC, and cellulation we have seen this also has impact on ADCC as well as its half-life. So how to properly control the glycan profile so that we can achieve the desirable glycan profiling? To address this problem, let's first go over how does the different glycan profile was formed inside the CHO cells. So basically, the glycan profile typically happens in the Golgi or the refolding and modification process. So in general, this process involves a number of enzymatic reactions that involves both of its precursors as well as a number of enzymes involved in this reaction chains. So in general, in order to manipulate a desirable N-glycan profile, we can adopt the general strategy either through the cell line engineering by tuning certain mechanism and their kinetics, and through the cell line engineering, or through controlling the cell culture conditions to adjust enzymatic reaction, or adjusting the precursor or its competitor's concentration. Let me further illustrate through a couple of examples. In our platform, we have done quite a number of efforts in terms of cell line engineering to achieve a target glycan profile. So first, with our proprietary afucosylation cell line with ADCC plus functionality, this is with FUT8 gene knockout. This is a quite well-known mechanism to achieve ADCC plus functionality, and we can basically achieve 100% afucosylation through this proprietary cell line. And in addition, we have seen emergent applications in high cellulation profile as well as reduced mannose profile, so that we have also designed in-house our proprietary cell lines that could produce reduced level of high mannose as well as increased level of cellulation. This high cellulation cell line is going to be launched soon by next year. And in terms of controlling the cell culture conditions, as I have mentioned, the two general ideas is first to control the enzyme activity. For example, a lot of cell culture parameters could have certain impact on the enzyme activity, with most commonly used ones including the pH. Sometimes it's the media, the osmolar level, cell culture duration, and DO level could also impact the enzyme activity. And alternatively, we can control the concentration of the sugar nucleotides, which is a precursor of the glycan species, with their tuning their precursor cofactors or analogous concentration to achieve either improve a certain level of glycans or reduce the level of glycans, with some commonly used parameters summarized in this table. Here I give a couple of examples in real projects that we have adopted in the previous slide strategies. By tuning the cell culture parameters, we can achieve either improved glycosylation level, improve the afucosylation. Again, this is not as effective as using ADCC plus cell line, but at least we can see somehow a significant increase of afucosylation percentage. How to control Mannose 5 species, as well as improve the silation level. So in summary, from this talk, hopefully I have demonstrated that we have quite extensive experience with complex biologics, including bispecific antibodies as well as fusion proteins. And in the last, I would like to also highlight that we have successfully assisted a number of our partners in completing a number of 6 licensing out projects, as listed details here, which covering bispecific antibodies, fusion proteins, and ADC formats. And some of these molecules has been successfully licensed out to global MNCs, and over the past 2 years, we have been continuing partnering with our company friends to continue providing the we have successfully provided IND enabling CMC service and continued providing the material production for their clinical phase use. And in the last, we recently also launched our Express CMC service with the industry-leading development speed. As I mentioned, we have our proprietary ProMax vector launched earlier this year, and together with this vector that allows us to deliver this 4 months tox material delivery coming from a single clone material. To our knowledge, this is one of the fastest industry-leading development speed, utilizing a single clone to produce the tox material. And we are in the process of promoting this service and going to give you further details in September through the webinar series. And you are more than welcome to stay tuned for this further introduction on this new service. With that, that brings to the end of my talk, and welcome any questions.
혹시 질문 있으신 분 편하게 질문해 주시겠습니까?
네. 어그리게이션을 방지하기 위한 방법으로 링커를 늘리셨는데 링커를 늘리고 나서 다이설파이드 본드가 원활히 형성된 이유가 무엇인지 궁금합니다.
Could you go back the aggregation part in?
Yep. Which slide?
I think they're disulfide bond. Yeah. So she wonders we modified type for the for disulfide bond.
근데 다이설파이드가 원활히 형성된 이유가 뭐지? 링커를 늘린 이후에 링커가 지금 3개, 그러니까 GGS 3개 넣었었는데 지금 3+N으로 되어 있으니까 그 이상 넣으시고 나서 다이설파이드 본드가 좀 원활히 이루어져서 어그리게이션이 방지된 것으로 보이는데 어떤 걸로 디자인을 하셨나요?
The compare the wild type and the modified types, we increase of the linker. So what is some reason to make a disulfide bond for here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of times when we see the client like to utilize single trap way because it's the easiest thing. You can take all the binding site from the wild type IgG and then utilize it in your bispecific antibody formation. But sometimes we see it's not a very good idea in terms of the CMC perspective, because in their wild type, in the IgG structures, actually all the hydrophobic patches are closely packed inside the IgG antibody because of their nature formats. But if you simply take out the single-strand free fragment, and you have to find some ways to basically connect these two different domains and making sure that, because there are a lot of hydrophobic regions inside the single-strand FA, and without a proper design, it's very easy to expose certain hydrophobic patches and make them like easy to form aggregates. So in this case, a commonly used strategy is to introduce a linker and with tuning different lengths, as well as interchain disulfide bond. Basically, the idea is to stabilize the two species and minimize exposure of hydrophobic region. Because otherwise, if you let these two species freely form, it's very likely to introduce a lot of hydrophobic patches exposed to form certain aggregates. So in our experience, the first introduction is always to introduce interchain disulfide bond, but with respect to a specific spot of mutation, that probably needs to be further optimized depending on different cases. And alternatively, with the addition of disulfide bond, sometimes we can also consider adjusting the length of this interchain linker to basically alleviate certain conformational stress or improve its thermal stability. I hope that helped address your question.
말씀 주신 것처럼 지금 왈타입 같은 경우는 하이드로포빅이 많기 때문에 어리게이션이 심하게 많이 지기 때문에 지금 다이설파이트 본드를 하거나 링커를 늘림으로써 이렇게 방지를 했다, 이렇게 설명을 해주셨습니다. 혹시 추가 질문 또 있으실까요? 네.
네, 없으시다면 두 번째 섹션 여기서 마치도록 하겠습니다. 혹시라도 궁금하신 사항 있으면은 이제 두 번째 세션 끝나고 브레이킹 타임이 시작될 거니까 그때 저희 쪽으로 문의 주시면 될 것 같습니다. 네, 감사합니다. 땡큐 인.